Let's keep our eye out for Mr. Luft, and then we'll join him. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing real good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Can't really complain. Been crazy busy, which is good. On an issue that we're going to talk about today. So that's kind of one of the driving forces behind it. We are the reboot. We're waiting on one or two others to join, but we'll get started anyway today. Well, let's see if I see him now. Possibly not yet. We took a couple of weeks hiatus. Had a bunch of stuff going on between the group meetings and conferences and whatever else. But we are the reboot. We meet Wednesdays at 1:30. And today we're going to talk about, once again, Zero Trust, cybersecurity, and get into a few things that are very, very interesting, especially as people become semi-complacent with things today and the risks that are involved with that. With that said, I am Brian Bracci. I'm with B&L PC Solutions on Long Island in New York, joined by...
I am Dave Groot with WinStar Technologies, and we are in Culpeper, Virginia. How you doing, Brian?
Cool. Good. All right. So, okay, I see David now. Hang on.
Great. There we go. Hey, there he is.
Can't hear you.
Not yet.
Halfway there. Half the battle.
I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Just start talking whenever you want. I'll tell you when we can hear you. All right, Dave. Zero Trust. Taking that layered approach to securing your network, your entire infrastructure, and putting in tools, controls, and behavioral training that you can kind of close any open door, hole, whatever you want to call it, and secure that environment and trust nothing except for what you allow. And that's the skinny of it. I was talking to somebody the other day and going over some different controls that we are putting in place. And they're like, well, why do I need this if I have this? Why doesn't this do everything? And I kind of, the analogy is, well, do you wear your seatbelt in your car? I'm like, well, yeah, of course. I said, but you have airbags. I said, why would you wear a seatbelt if you have airbags? Right. It's the same concept. Like you do because one isn't enough. And it's layering in what you can to protect you. And again, everything that we do and say, what we're going to talk about is not foolproof.
Well, I mean, we constantly are preaching, right? Defense in layers. It's not about one tool. It's not about one fix, one correction, one anything. It isn't set and forget, right? I do a workshop every week on the 7 layers of defense, just to talk about where it is you can apply different strategies in these different layers to cross over and protect yourself to gain that zero trust kind of mentality.
Right.
And there's a couple of different primary pillars is the word everybody to use when you're talking about these types of things in the world. But Microsoft has theirs, and then NIST has their pillars of what zero trust really is. It really just comes back to me. It's about, look, keeping in control of your identity infrastructure, keeping control of your infrastructure, and then keeping control of your data. And those are the 3 things you're playing with, however you want to slice it up. But it's becoming more and more important for everybody, not just, the big guys.
Yeah, I'll talk firsthand on an experience I had last week. We got a phone call in from someone that was not a client. They were under what they assumed was a suspected breach, and kind of tried to gather some intel over the phone with them, and they didn't know too much. So I went on site, and someone had control of their server, and installed some tools, and the first thing they're asking is, how did this happen? I said, well, we're not there yet. Let's identify what's going on here and try to analyze and get the see the severity of the issue and exactly what was impacted. So 36 hours later of just digging in, and there was a ransomware rampant on the network.
Now wait a minute. No, 36
No,
hours later
yeah,
of you getting many resources involved, very highly trained, knock sock people who do this stuff all day,
yes.
trying to dig in and figure out what the hell's going on. So like, it wasn't just 36 hours. Like, I mean,
Yeah. No, no.
okay,
That's
they need to understand that, Brian.
yeah. Oh,
The people here.
certainly. I couldn't agree more. I think the pain points though are the the laborious task of going through everything, getting the resources available, and having the honestly, Dave, the relationships with these vendors that I can call on a dime in an incident with someone that's not even a client of mine technically, and get them involved in doing their diligence and poking around and what I was able to find out and detect who was compromised, how it came in, you know, just giving them the little, after the fact, the little access that we had to things. Um, and the long story, the short story is that the breach impacted 4 servers, 50 some odd workstations, half the company, entirely down for 4 days, right? Recovery is remediation as a whole, and mitigation is a whole nother, conversation, but
Right.
but it's the postmortem. When I wrote their postmortem up yesterday and had a conversation with them on Monday about these things, and they're, well, how did this happen? And honestly, to be fully transparent here, it was the answer is, well, here's 9 openings that we have right now. Firewalls unsupported, unpatched. Servers haven't been patched in a year or rebooted. Um, no password policy in place, and we just went down the list of unrestricted USB access. So there was just pick your, I don't know, and any one of these is an entry point. So with that said, what can we do? Well, we can, now that we're clean and we're in a known good state, we can now lock down, and we're still not there yet. So now we're 2 days out. We're still not locked down. I said, we did nothing. I said, we brought you back to where you were. Whatever vulnerability was there is still there, right? Because we changed passwords. We did, we did put some software out there to help mitigate. But and my words to them would, do not be complacent right now because you're all working. I said, you had 100 plus people out of work for 4 days. I don't even know what that dollar amount is, but think in terms of beyond the scope of that. We now need to spend money and put the tools in place, the controls in place, the policies in place, the procedures in place, have everything documented, and then you can kind of relax and take a breath.
Well,
I understand.
then you
It's
got to keep
emotional. It's
testing and keep verifying,
absolutely,
though. You
yeah,
can't slow down on that, right? Because your
can
landscape changes. Now, every decision you make as an organization needs to consider cybersecurity. And I mean every decision, strategically, operationally. It doesn't matter. And I don't mean you, I mean your clients. I
yeah,
mean
of
those
course,
folks
yeah,
that we're talking to out there, right?
yeah,
Like it's changed the game for those people and for many like them, right?
mhm,
It does, it's like you say, if you don't fix the vulnerability, they're going to come right back and do it again. And okay, you got away with it once, whatever, let's push that envelope. I don't think that's a great idea. You're not going to make it twice.
right,
um
right, right.
you know but
And keep in mind that whoever this, if anyone, we always say when you breach, right? Because there's no, it's not going to happen. It's inevitable. It's really a when. And it could be on a personal level. It could be on a business side. But
you
the
know what Zero Trust does, though, with that? It is they can still get in. Even with Zero Trust, Brian, they can still get in. But here's what I like about it. If it's deployed properly and it's set up,
Mhm.
they get in and they're stuck in the mud.
Right, right,
They get one thing
right.
because they hit somebody with a link or something, and they got a phishing email or a business email compromise, some kind of payload dropped, and they got a hold of one machine. And then what do? They sit there and they enumerate, right? Like they try and figure out, what can I see on the network? What accounts can I find
Sure.
on this
Yeah.
machine? Is there any password hashes? How can I elevate? What services are running? Is there any known vulnerabilities on those services? blippity blippity blap. I'm going to put in map
Yeah.
and I'm just going to go blast. I'm going to find out everything I can. Well, if you've got a zero trust model, that thing's going to come back and say there is nothing.
Right.
It's
Right.
just you all by yourself sitting here doing nothing.
And with that behavior going on and all that noise, with the right solution in place,
It's
that
good.
should get self isolated or should be isolated by through automation, and
Right.
then then that issue is now on its own and can be mitigated without affecting or compromising the network. It still needs to be addressed that what happened here, how did it happen, who is it, and what. But as you're saying, with that zero trust implementation, I mean, I think we could all say with certainty that if you have a zero trust environment configured properly, to your point, David, configured properly, the odds of a company wide ransom attack or having to shut everything completely down are significantly decreased, as opposed to, even if you listen, you can be patched, you can have antivirus, you can have check all your boxes, your firewall's up to date, and all this good stuff, and still get compromised like that.
You can have MFA that can be compromised. You can
Mhm.
have, like, I mean, none of those things, which are all still good, right?
Yeah.
You should still have antivirus. You should still have a password. You should still have MFA, because the more of those layers, the more of an, challenge, the more
Sure.
pain in
Yeah.
the ass it is for the hacker. They're going to move past you ideally and to go to somebody that's a little bit more low hanging fruit. At least that's our hope and goal. But yeah, nothing is, if that zero trust is in play, then in essence, that means that my identity, me, has only the permissions that are given to me to even know about devices on the network, services on the network. Can I send to a printer? Maybe, but a printer can't send to me because it doesn't need to. And so zero trust blocks that, right? And so
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
stopping that movement, that lateral movement on the network, using those tools like PowerShell and all the things that we use every day to administer our networks. So the security tools don't always scream when they're in use, right? Especially if it's by a privileged account, because
Yep.
that's what they're designed to be in use by. This is the zero trust. I mean, my gosh, guys, I mean, I don't know if you remember. I know we've talked about it in the past, but I have to keep going back to it because it blows me away. I think it was like 1998 or 96, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there.
I'm
We
sorry.
had,
I wasn't born yet. I'm sorry.
well, we had a product then called Zone Alarm,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and it was a zero trust firewall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it basically, everybody hated it because it
Everyone
was the
tried to
first.
disable it because you couldn't do
That's
anything.
right. It was the first firewall that watched what was going out
Mm-hmm.
and stopped all that too. And that's
Yeah.
really what a firewall is supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody, most places we go, the deny all rule is supposed to be on, meaning nothing happens except for what you say can happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
people don't like that, right? We want information. We want it now. We don't want to wait. We don't want to plan. We want it on the spur of the moment,
Yeah.
on demand, all those things. And then what do? We give away security to get that.
Yeah.
So then there's a vulnerability.
Even on top of with the firewalls that we do sell, we bundle the security services into the Fortinets, right? And we don't give an option like, oh no, you know what, you just need a firewall with support on it. Like, no, it's bundled.
Yeah.
So we talk about layers. I mean, there's how's it going to be affected with if you're doing um, IDS and content filtering and all this other stuff, and it's like, no, today, especially today, these firewalls are meant to. That's what they're designed to do. I don't like that you have the option to not have services bundled with it. You gateway antivirus or gateway something. Just another layer of protection on that perimeter is inevitable. I think. I mean, it's not.
Well,
It's not
that's one of the layers, right?
yeah.
Of the 7 that I preach on all the time is perimeter, and firewall is what you got. The only thing I'll say about that is that now we have a dispersed force, right? And so that firewall is playing a slightly different role, and it depends. Like with the cloud and with remote, there's less on-premise assets to protect in most cases, and so that firewall is shifting on some level a little bit away from that paradigm. I think, anyway. I'm seeing it in some cases where we're not even worrying about the firewall or the security software on the firewall because we're putting it all at the client. Right. So we have all the content filtering and the DNS and the firewalls and all that kind of stuff are handled by the client itself. And that means if they're anywhere, we still have that same control, right? That's where, it's just, but you're right. When you're talking about a network infrastructure with on-prem stuff, that perimeter, there, like, it's better to do it through the firewall because I don't have to go through 57 machines to make sure they're all the right way.
Right.
So it just depends on where people are set up and how they are.
Yeah, and you brought up, cloud, and that's another layer that
big
is
time.
very easily overlooked. I mean, I talk to prospects, clients, or not so much clients, but prospects about what are you doing for protection on your cloud accounts, and they're like, well, they're good. I'm like, they're good how, and I mean, I've had people tell us that they're good, and there's going back to what we said earlier, there's no multi-factor, or somebody knows all the passwords to all the accounts. And just these, again, the human layer is the worst. It's the absolute worst. When you have to rely on a person to do something the right way. I mean, what if that person's having a bad day? What if that person hates his job? Whatever it is, then that's a layer that needs to be taken, with extreme caution when you assign people to do things or tasks, especially when it comes to security. But having the cloud services, these SaaS services, protected by some kind of an MDR or SOC or something to analyze that data and that traffic. A lot of people don't do that. They're just looking, okay, here's my network. Well, no, your network extends now beyond just your local infrastructure.
Guess what my favorite thing is, Brian?
Chocolate brownies.
No, SIM.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's what does it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, some of these solutions, Dave, I think you're with, I partnered with Blackpoint recently, right? And all the layers that they have, no, David, couldn't hear you. Sorry. All the layers you can, they have the SIM, they have the cloud protection, they have the SOC. So they have layers in one product, which is nice. But again, that's all just one layer that still needs to be, overlapped with something else. So we use them for, that's who we partner with, and it's been a great experience.
Well, so yeah, I mean, for us, what we do is we make sure we're pulling all of the logs in from all of the cloud services in, so that SOC, they have the most insight possible, right? Like, if they can, because like, look, I mean, there's always false alerts, and there's always, hey, this behavior could be malicious in intent, but when you start seeing it from multiple locations, cross-checked, overlapped, same time, you can start getting 3 opinions, and now I see, okay, look, this is really happening, and it's not supposed to be in this way, or whatever. They get more information from those log files, like you say, because everything is in the cloud. And I got to tell you, it's just amazing what you can understand about activity and everything else with all those log files. So it's valuable information. Even
and there is, on our part, there's the validation that needs to take place, because we'll get an alert for a potential compromised credential. If the SOC sees somebody logged in California to their email, 3 hours later they see that same account logged in Chicago, they send us an alert, say check for a possible data password compromise on this user. So we have to validate that. We call the user and say, "Are you traveling?" "Yes, I'm in Chicago." "Okay, great." If they're not, then now we have something concrete. But the
notification, but if I can see that their mobile phone just logged in from LA at the same time as their laptop logged in from Chicago, because I'm looking at logs from different places, right? Now I'm catching on that this is definitely not travel. And now I can, as a SOC, as an analyst, I'm able to see that information quick.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we can go on and on about this, right? I mean, there's just, like I said, I think there's never a time to not have the conversation. It's very easy, it's such a big topic and risk for individuals and companies alike, that it's very easy just to kind of turn away from it and say, I you're overwhelmed by it. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be that way. I mean, there's solutions that we could put in place in an hour and give you a level of protection that is going to supersede anything you have in place now, guaranteed. I mean, there's just
Absolutely. You can knock up their security six notches really quick. If it's compliance, that's a little bit more time involved because we're talking about policies and procedures and culture and stuff. But yeah, security can be done relatively. It doesn't have to be super duper expensive. It just needs to be done wisely. And I would say, again, preaching on my soapbox, know what you got to protect, because then you know what the priorities are, and try and do an assessment or have somebody give you an assessment so that you can see where the gaps are in your security today and how that impacts the things that are most important to your organization, and then focus on those first. Right? Because you're not going to be able to do every possible little, hey, do MFA, do this, get a spam. Like, okay, great. I can buy 1,000 things, cut, death by 1,000 cuts. But like, look at what's important, understand it. And the way you do that is think through that exercise of, if I walk into my company tomorrow and I don't have access to my payroll, what does that mean? If I walk into my company tomorrow and my phones aren't working, what does that mean? If I walk into my company tomorrow and my website is down, or my whole internet is down, or all of our data is gone, or our financials are locked up, what does that mean? Who do I call? What do I got to do? Oh, where do I find that information? Because my computer is currently hosed. Like, think through those things so that you know where to focus your time.
Yep. Yeah, those are excellent points. And I think along those lines, an incident response plan, we've talked about that before, and everything that you just described is an incident. And an example of that is the same breach. Not only was their network down, guess what else was down, David? Their phones. Because
they couldn't handle their customer flow. They couldn't tell what their problem was to the customers, right? Their customers are wondering, what the hell's up? Are you alive or dead?
Exactly.
I mean,
so
reputational damage all day long.
Exactly. And then and just to go one step further, I know we're tight on time, but the impact of a breach, or specifically a ransomware attack, where your files are encrypted, there's the threat of now data exfiltration or exploiting on top of that.
Right, being put out on the dark web for sale, and so now you're looking at fines, data breach notification.
Exactly. It goes it's a rabbit hole into these areas that and so the first step is to talk about that prevention, get the layers in place, and have a timeline. I mean, again, software aside, security aside, then there's the policies, right? Policies need to be written and followed and tested. So, and again, things we talk about all the time, but they're critical, and especially today. Like I said, I just lived it last week, and it was disheartening to see the damage that was done. Fortunately, we're at 100% recovery with them, but it was devastating. It really is just something that
you're at 100%, meaning you were able to put them back whole. But I would kind of argue that they'll not be 100% because of all the hidden costs, right? The whatever that is, money or otherwise, just business, reputational loss, whatever. Legal fees or emotional or all kinds of things weigh on those. Those are the kinds of things folks don't really want to think about when they're thinking security, right?
Yeah.
There's an expense, and I always try and tell my clients, it's like, look, just picture yourself just sitting there at your desk, writing cards to your list of clients, explaining to them why their stuff is on the dark web.
Right.
Because that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then tell me how that makes you feel. Like, because, telling your staff, and their families, your stuff's all out there, and hey, I can't pay you now.
Right.
Like, wow. Yeah.
So, yep. Cool.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to help them out. That's really cool.
No, definitely. There's that sense of on our end, accomplishment, being able to do what we can do. But it's a one of those lessons learned, which is written in our postmortem. It was the whole list of things, and then lessons learned, and hopefully that sticks, and better controls are put in place. And our goal is to obviously prevent whatever we can. But I think a bigger goal that we preach to clients and prospects is we want that. How quickly can we identify something's going on? We don't want to find out in a month that this happened. We want to find out. I mean, ideally seconds, right? We want to know this is going on
Well, I
right
mean, you're mitigating the risk. That's
now.
what you're trying to do. Limit the exposure, whatever
Yep.
the phrase is.
Mhm.
Less is better, right? I mean, like again, they might compromise one machine. They
Mhm.
might even get a couple files off of that machine, but they're done. That's
Right.
where they stop,
Right.
And I can live with one machine. I can fix that.
Right.
That's something we can work with, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you.
All right, guys. Good seeing you.
See you guys next week.
I'll be safe.
All right. Take care, guys.
Amen. Bye.